It's a beautiful day. It's a rainy morning, showers of blessing all around. Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Daybreak right here on Trust Television. We're live in the Federal Capital Territory and it is a beautiful day. The weekend is over and gone and the new week has started once again. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the show. I'm Dashan Husseina Osman and I'm not alone in the studio. My colleague, my co-anchor is on leave for a while and he's back with us on the show this morning. Good morning,
Yeah,
Abdulaziz.
good morning,
Thank you.
Husseina. It's been, well, as you said earlier, a working leave, but of course it's a time to reflect, time to refresh.
As
And
well.
we thank God that one is back in one piece to continue the
Yeah,
show and other
definitely.
engagements. It's really indeed a beautiful day, a beautiful morning. As Husseina said, it's been drizzling this morning. Signs of a good week ahead for all of us, surely. I am Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz, thank you for joining us this morning for Daybreak on Trust TV.
It's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to the highlights at this hour. ASU strike, NANS threatened to shut down airport.
Nigeria's economy would have hit total collapse if not for justice sector, Malemi says.
And we also have a funeral schedule, Queen Elizabeth II to be buried on Monday. And here are the details. The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, has said it will ground activities at both local and international airports across the country beginning from today, Monday, over the lingering strike action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. The leadership of NANS, who spoke in Akure, the Ondo state capital, said the grounding of airports was to make the rich share in the pains of the students occasioned by the prolonged strike action. The chairman of NANS National Task Force on End ASU Strike Now, Comrade Ojo Raymond Olumide, said students were tired of pleading with both parties to end the strike. Olumide cautioned ASU not to call off the strike after any increment in their salary, but to insist on their demands that led to the strike action. It said its decision to ground airport activities was due to the successes recorded in its road protest, in which several highways were blocked.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice in Nigeria, Abubakar Malemi, has said justice sector has been the one that saved the country's economy from total collapse. According to Malemi, and if PNID had succeeded in enforcing an arbitral award over $10 billion, the economy would have gone down. The AGF said that several recoveries made by the ministry had also played major parts in keeping the economy afloat. Speaking over the weekend at a maiden top management retreat of the Federal Ministry of Justice held in Kano, Malemi said the sum of $311 million recovered funds were deployed into critical infrastructure projects such as the Abuja-Kano and Lagos-Ibadan expressways, as well as Second Niger Bridge.
Away from that story, 2,000 guests, including U.S. President Joe Biden and Emperor of Japan Naruhito, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo will be joined by several other heads of state and monarchs to attend Queen Elizabeth II's funeral at Westminster Abbey in London today. In the afternoon, Queen Elizabeth II's coffin will travel to Windsor Castle for a church service where she'll be buried in a private ceremony in the evening. Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral is one of the biggest logistical challenges in British history, with more than 10,000 police officers from all over the country stationed in the capital in anticipation of large crowds along the funeral route. On Monday morning, the royal coffin, which is currently on display at Westminster Palace in London, will be moved in a procession to Westminster Abbey beginning at 10:35 a.m. The coffin will be placed on a gun carriage towed by 98 naval officers in a tradition dating back to Queen Victoria's funeral in 1901 and will be followed by the King and members of the British royal family. Although the state funeral service led by the Dean of Westminster, David Hoyle, will begin at 11 a.m., the Abbey's doors will open 3 hours earlier to welcome the 2,000 people who have been invited to the event.
Meanwhile, one factor that makes the habit of smoking, especially cigarettes, hard to break is because tobacco contains the very addictive chemical called nicotine, which the human body quickly gets used to. Despite the health implication of smoking, many in the society cannot do without it as it has become part of their daily routines. This report sent by Abubakar Abdullahi presented from our studio x-rays how smokers handle addiction vis-a-vis the health implications of smoking. The report.
Yeah, sometimes it's friends that is mingle around with friends. Sometimes going out in social gathering, or sometimes others just feel like to smoke just to catch fun, and from that it will turn to like say addicted. Yes, turn to addicted, and when it has turned to addicted to you now, you'll be finding it difficult for you to escape from it.
People could start smoking for different reasons. Some, they just want to belong, to a group of people that to a social class sort of. And if the social class are populated by people that smoke, they will smoke. For instance, going to clubs, you see a lot of people smoking, and then you are also there, and the tendency is for you to say, okay, let me also smoke. And then for young people, particularly young adults, the issue of social class, peer group pressure. You have friends that smoke, and the likely thing is you want to join.
Similarly, individual tobacco or cigarette smokers have different reasons why and how they started smoking. Oftentimes, people are pushed into starting the habit by peer pressure or psychological trauma. In Katsina, Abdullahi Yamadi samples the opinions of some smokers and tries to get answers to some questions. His report.
Smoking everywhere in the world is regarded as a bad habit by whoever engages in it, and it is absolutely dangerous to human health. The army of smokers continues to grow despite warnings and campaigns by organizations and relevant stakeholders about dangers associated with cigarette smoking. It raises the question, why does smoking persist even after the World Health Organization continues to make it clear that over 8 million people die from tobacco smoking each year?
Tobacco smoking is one of the most addictive behaviors now. It is not easy, or we cannot simply say that it is simple to quit smoking. It's not something you can change behaviorally without any stressful issues. Like we have said, ardent and casual smokers, or simply addicted smokers, or not addicted, smoking is one of those behaviors people cannot discard easily.
Tobacco or any other form of smoking cuts across all age groups and gender, regardless of its health implication. I am an ardent smoker, and I started smoking 20 to 25 years ago. I was lured into smoking by my friends, who happened to be trailer drivers. I can quit anytime I wish because I know about its implications. Its dangers are written everywhere, even on the cigarette packs. Beyond that, can ardent smokers quit without any help or alternative to smoking? Experts suggest some alternative ways smokers can quit the habit with or without the help of anybody.
If somebody wishes to quit smoking or any bad habit, he can do so without any consultation, because it is on his own will that he started smoking. If he wants to stop smoking, he can stop, because all the religions that we are following in this country prohibit smoking.
Observers are blaming authorities of doing little or nothing to discourage tobacco consumption in Nigeria. They are suggesting that governments can checkmate smoking by imposing taxes and making legislations that can effectively reduce citizens' access to the product. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Wow, Dashan, I don't know if you look at this issue of smoking, it's something that look at some of the smokers,
yes.
and they are confessing to knowing the dangers, but yet they.
Yeah, you know, even it's actually a big business, and even those who sell these cigarettes, you know, there's actually a clear warning that it's dangerous to your health, you know, so you're smoking at your own risk. And but for some clients, you know, it's like a rite of passage for them, you know,
Well,
and
exactly.
it's
It has become like a culture.
Yes, it's actually addictive. So you know, it takes a lot for you to actually stop. Like that trailer driver that actually said that he can stop whenever he wants to. It's not as easy. It's actually not that. Especially if you've been smoking for that long, it's not as easy.
Yeah,
you know,
you've been
but
smoking for 20, 25 years.
25 years, it's not easy at all. But you know, it takes will and strength and courage. So.
And you know, globally there has been a strong anti-tobacco lobby campaign.
Okay.
I remember as kids, the warning was very ineligible and on the pack. You know, smokers are liable to die young.
Yeah,
but look at now.
How effective can it be? Because there's the anti-smoking campaign, and then you're still selling these cigarettes.
Yes, but you know, at least now, for example, you have lungs, damaged lungs, normal lungs.
And then cancer, it leads to
but
cancer
people are still buying and smoking. Well, as I said, it has become a way of life for many of them.
For some people.
So let's move on. Kaduna Book and Art Festival, Kabafest, has come to an end, with participants entertaining fears over the sustainability of the event after the tenure of Governor Nasiru El-Rufai. The participants believe that if it is sustained, the event will encourage reading culture and promote literacy, as well as help in the discovery of talents in northern Nigeria. The report.
Kaduna Book and Art Festival is an annual literary, cultural, and art event that debuted in 2017. It is also the largest art and literary event in northern Nigeria, where literates gather to showcase their talent. Besides inspiring the participants, the event not only encourages reading culture, but promotes cultural heritage.
A lot of youths here, and we're losing the reading culture. With this program, I think getting back to books.
That literary tradition, which we have always been known for as a people, we are naturally storytellers as Africans, has not been lost. All that is left is for platforms like this to keep sprouting.
I believe that there are certain conversations that need to be had, and we don't really have them outside these settings. So I think it's important that we have these conversations here.
It exposes you to a lot of critical conversations for this generation and how our society works now.
If I'm going to do something big of literature or art someday, I think this is going to be my biggest motivation, Kadafest.
For freelance journalist and bilingual writer Salim Yunusa, supporting writers by state government is key.
Having artists in the states is a way of promoting the state and the talent pool of the states. So the government should do all it can to support this kind of movements, because you cannot just be allowed to have a talent for it to waste away. It is very important as a government to identify all sources of talent and promote that in their states.
The fears entertained by writers and art lovers is whether the program will be sustained beyond Governor El-Rufai administration in the state.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to move it from government funding to private sector funding, which would have been the ideal. But the only thing I would say is I personally will try my best to see that it is sustained. If the next government that comes in does not see it fit to continue, we'll have to look for funding from other sources.
Well, festivals can only be sustained by funding, to be honest with you, and it's hard. It's very difficult, and as long as Kaduna State continues to put its money where its mouth is about wanting to support young creatives, I think this festival will continue.
It definitely should be sustained, because just like the children need to know about their culture, we also need to know more about our culture, and we need to learn how to inculcate it into our everyday lives.
The 2022 Kaba Fest featured panel discussion, art and book exhibition, book chat, film screening and discussion, dance performance, among others. Bello Musa, Trust TV News Kaduna.
Well, Abdulaziz, you actually happened to be there at the festival,
Fest,
so
yeah.
you're a panelist, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I was a panelist.
Yeah, how was it? How did it go?
Well, it was actually a very interesting, and as some of the respondents in this report mentioned, it's quite an opportunity, especially for young talents to be discovered. And actually, in the last 7 years that the event has been held, a number of developments in terms of discovery of talents. We have had, like this year, some filmmakers who who said they were encouraged by their participation in during the first year for them to start something, and young writers, who feel thrilled, meeting people that they aspire to be like, meeting them one-on-one, getting access to some books that otherwise they could not get, and generally getting inspired, and also, especially because the event, beyond just literary discussions, also discuss issues of social problems. Like, for example, this year, I was on a panel that discussed the Almajri challenge.
Yeah.
There was another one that discussed sexual harassment, female leadership, management of cities. So all these things, and I think they are quite helpful.
But do you think it will be sustained after El-Rufai, Mr.
So that is the big question. This is about interest, and almost all governments, and that's one of the problems we're having as a country, issue of sustainability and continuity, as we said. So almost everyone that comes wants to start something that will be said, oh, this is his own initiative. But the hope of almost all participants in this year's fest was
going to be sustained.
That this should be sustained beyond this government, and we hope so.
All right, with that, let's move on to the next package. Elder statesman and former secretary to government of the Federation, Chief Olu Falaye, said Nigerians have a chance to make the right choices that will define their future beyond 2023. According to him, the 2023 election is a battle between the people and the political class. Here's
As a Nigerian citizen and elder statesman, my prayer and wish is that the 2023 elections, first, that it will hold. Because we should not assume that it will hold, because the terrorists and the bandits are doing their very best to arrest our democratic development. So I hope the authorities will put them in check so that we can hold peaceful elections. That's number one. Two, if the elections take place as I hope they will, I hope Nigerians will choose very, very carefully. It should not be business as usual. Take 10,000 and vote for the wrong candidate. No. We can all see the crisis we are going through. 10,000, 20,000 can no longer solve the problem of insecurity, of hunger and inflation. It's because of wrong choices, voting for 10,000 and 20,000 that has landed us in this mess. So we should not repeat the mess in 2023. That's my plea as an old man. I'm now 84 years of age, and I want to have a peaceful old age. And that can only happen if there's peace in Nigeria. So I'm praying and pleading that all Nigerians to vote for the party that has an ideology, that has a promise to address their problems, not just those who give them money.
So-called major political parties have always won based on rigging. The rigging schemes of ballot box snatching, multiple voting, irregular voting, vote allocations have always been committed by major political parties and by incumbents. Now, all these schemes have been eliminated by technology in the new electoral process. So those who are afraid now are the so-called major political parties. We see opportunity and they see threats. Yes, I have faith in INEC leadership, but I have more faith in technology. Technology has been employed to remove all man-made rigging schemes, which has always been the untoward advantage of establishment, that is incumbents. So we have no problem. INEC has done its bit. INEC leadership is doing great, and we have employed technology for the first time to resolve these rigging schemes. Just as you cannot take your telephone and take money from somebody else's account, you cannot also rig this election. It's now a disadvantage. It is no longer an advantage. Why? Because if you agree that Nigeria has collapsed, if you agree that our education system has collapsed, our security system has collapsed, our economic system has collapsed, all the various indices for development in this country has collapsed, then you have to locate the blame. And where are you going to locate it? You locate it on the incumbents. So you have to blame the incumbents for the problems of the country. That is a position of disadvantage, not position of advantage. All the incumbent has is the stolen money of the state or of the country. He doesn't have anything. And these days, money is not a monopoly of only incumbents. People have their own money. So, and the so-called big political wings that you are talking about, they only have one vote. Every Nigerian has only one vote. So we appeal to the people, to the masses, who are victims of the policies of incumbents. And their eyes are open, like the other people who say, Ido Mage Abude.
It's been Daybreak on Trust TV, and thank you very much for staying with us. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, the show continues.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
That's good. That's good to see you.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now I will move on to the next segment, which is the newspaper review for analysis. And, we'll start by reeling out some of the headlines on the major dailies. Now I will start with Daily Trust newspaper, and we have the lead story here that says how bandit leader Turji escaped NAF bombings. 12 buried, fighters, women, kids affected. Residents in panic over possible reprisal. Will sustain the tempo, says military. We also have 19 killed in FCT road crash. Masquerades invade a Plateau church, flog pastor and worshippers. And Daily Trust launches online shopping hub. And then you'd see, just beside the story, you'd see a pictorial of a rice field destroyed by flood along River Benue in Taraba State yesterday. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
Up next is Vanguard newspaper, where the lead story says businesses heading for total collapse. NECA raises the alarm. Says over 50 taxes weighing businesses down, warns against further borrowing, calls for harmonized tax system. Economy facing many vulnerabilities, according to Muda Yusuf, the DG of LCCI. Let there be tax harmony, says FIRS boss. On the top of the page, how Nigeria dresses in borrowed robes, Atiku says. Then 305 billion 2023 election budget, we are paying for lack of trust, says INEC chairman Yakubu. COVID-19 Catholic bishops suspend 30 months ban on handshakes during Mass. Below, down the page, campaign council, PDP's move puts APC under pressure. Tinubu appoints Governor Yahaya Bello youth coordinator campaign council. Masquerades invade church, flog worshippers, destroy property in Plateau community. 19 killed in FCT auto crash. Strike lecturers in ASU's factional group. Konwa demand reopening of buses. These are some of the headlines in today's Vanguard newspaper.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the Nation newspaper. And the lead story here talks about strike. Reps ASU meet over face-off with government tomorrow. And we also have Buhari in U.S. for United Nations General Assembly. Stock, just below the nameplate there, we have stock market's new rule threatens investors' 1 trillion naira fund. And we also have world leaders to attend Queen Elizabeth's funeral. And PDP governors mount pressure on Wike to drop "You must go" call. Some writers here says division in Southwest chapters over Makinde's position, and fire shade to meet Rivers governor. And these are some of the stories on the Nation newspaper.
Okay, up next is the Punch newspaper. Up next is the Daily Times newspaper, where the major story says NAS to amend. Okay, let's look at the Sun newspaper first, where the major story says APC under pressure over campaign council as Wike considers options. Ruling parties NEC yet to ratify Tinubu's list. Agree former presidential aspirants keep mum. And just by the masthead, presidency north-south zoning against federal character, says Iwan Yau. 2 dead, several injured as building collapses in Uyo. Story on page 5 of the Sun newspaper. And the pictorial on the front page shows a visit by the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the mother of the Sun newspaper publisher and senator representing Abia, and Senate Chief Whip Chief Ojo Uzokalu, his mother Chief Eunice Uzokalu in Abuja yesterday. And just below that, 2023 budget, 11.03 trillion deficit rattles Senate. Lawmakers may tinker with tax, customs laws. COVID-19 Catholic Church resumes handshake during Mass. Story on page 28. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Sun newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times, and we have the lead story that talks about NAS to amend Finance Act again. Tomorrow's resumption date for lawmakers doubtful, says Senator Musa. And just above that story, we have 11.03 trillion naira 2023 budget deficit. And we also have Buhari to address 77th United Nations General Assembly. We also have Nigeria hosts Global Investment Forum in New York, lists Zuckerberg, Gates, Blinken, Okonjo-Iweala, others as speakers. Just on the footnote there, we have Jigawa records 29 new deaths as toll from flooding tops 90. And above the page, we have plans to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty attainable, and NLC reiterates position on removal of petrol subsidies. And these are some of the stories on the Daily Times.
Up next is the Guardian newspaper, which lead the paper with last mile infrastructure stalls $3 billion submarine cable investment. And the story has riders despite over 50 terabyte bandwidth capacity versus airports, hospitals yet to connect. Infracos reluctant to move to site despite NCC directive. Lack of counterpart funding will stall service expansion, say experts. FG commits to 390 naira per gigabyte by 2025 as competition drags services. NCC assures underserved areas of broadband availability. And at the top of the page, world stands still today for historic Queen's funeral. Story on page 6. Kogi Governor Bello appointed national coordinator of Tinubu Shetima campaign. Below that, we can see pictorials of Vice President Yemi Oshibanjo and U.S. President Joe Biden signing the condolence register for the deceased Queen Elizabeth II in London ahead of her funeral today. Some other stories on the front page. No monkeypox vaccines in Nigeria, says NCDC. Nigerians sue INEC over voter registration. Story on page 4. Then expert chart path to single-digit inflation. Fitch upgrades First Bank's ratings to be on improved asset quality. Story on page 15. These are some of the stories on today's Guardian newspaper.
All right, up next is the Punch newspaper, and we have the lead story here that talks about tax reliefs and concessions. Federal government grants 16 trillion naira waiver to Dangote, Honeywell, others. We have riders that says duty waivers, tax reliefs good for economy but discriminatory. Economists slam federal government. South Africa earned $107 billion tax revenue in 2021. Nigeria $15 billion behind Kenya, Angola. Revenue slumps as debt servicing gulps 6.16 trillion naira in 16 months, says DMO report. And just below that story, we have 22 killed in Abuja, Lagos, Ogun crashes, and 12 hospitalized. At the top of the page, federal government secures pipelines with 12 billion naira, pays IOCs 4 billion naira. We also have PDP crisis worsens, bot meets autumn fintery today. And Atiku Kwankwaso have no street credibility, says Keyamo. We also have Nigeria's, just beside the nameplate there, Nigeria's oil production crashes to 900,000 barrel per day. And 24 sue INEC, allege 7 million voters are unregistered. These are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper.
Thank you very much, Husseina. And we have in the studio to help us analyze some of these stories, Mukhtar Suleiman, a public affairs commentator. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and good morning.
Good morning.
It's always a pleasure to actually be here.
Thank you. Well, the papers, there are so many stories, divergent, maybe typical of Mondays. What is your take on some of these issues? Especially for me, some of the recurrent stories is that of road crashes. I know, is it the rain? Is it the, speed? Always Road Safety complains about that. But if you look at the front page of Daily Trust, front page of Punch and many other papers this morning reported about 19 people that were killed. I think in some other places this should be a national emergency, that 19 could just perish in a one road accident. What's your thought about this?
Before I even get into that, in Nigeria now, everybody is just a number waiting to be counted as somebody that has been deceased. It's painful, really. I remember that in Maiduguri, 2 years ago, we were doing a training for journalists around countering violent extremisms. And one of the editors that were there, I won't say the name of the paper, said he was collating his stories for the day to send to the headquarters for printing. And then he noticed that there was a story that one of his reporters did not cover about a bandit attack, a busy Boko Haram attack in one of the villages where 3 people died. So he called the reporter, how far? I didn't see this story on your report, what happened? And the reporter said, okay, only 3 people died now. Yes, and it's not like he said it willfully, he said it ignorantly. And this is because he's used to seeing 100 people die, 200 people died. So 3 people doesn't sound newsworthy
make
anymore,
news.
which is a very painful situation. But anyway, I'm talking about the issue of the road crashes. I think there are 2 sides to it. There's a side of roadworthiness of a car, and there's a side of carworthiness of the road as well. Because if we look at most of our roads, we're having issues with it currently. And just now, when I was coming down to the studio, I saw this car. It's raining outside, and I saw this car just with so much speed pass. I say, you must really trust your brake and trust the Nigerian road to drive like that under the rain. So it's really something that Nigerians need to look into. We have to be a bit careful. It's better to be late than to become late Mr. or late Mrs. So we actually need to check that. We should be so much in a hurry to get somewhere that we don't get there at all, or we get delayed by things that are avoidable. There was some months ago, there was a road rage along this main express, this main express that comes down to the Daily Trust.
Okay, that's Shehu Eradua Express.
This main express that comes down to the Daily Trust, and 2 people were dragging the road. One person fell off the Mabushi Bridge.
Wow.
And died instantly. This was avoidable. Like, if one person had just calmed down for the next person, it would have just, so these are things that we need to actually check within ourselves, especially we that we're driving.
Some people would actually say, is it, do you know who I am syndrome?
Yes.
Especially here in Abuja.
Exactly. Impatience. I know that the Federal Road Safety Services, especially for those outskirts roads, because what happened is around Lokoja Abuja Express, and they speak about late night driving. You know, a lot of the vehicles, you see that they don't have good lighting, or some of them they use very strong lights that they obstruct the vision of the person.
Some don't even have lights at all.
Yeah, some don't have at all.
It's crazy, really, because there are some accidents you see and you wonder, how did you get here? Like, how did the car end? At what speed were you trying to take off? Because even the plane don't even go that fast before takeoff.
And then there's some crescents and some bends that you're supposed to slow down to actually approach, but you find them speeding. All right, let's take a look at the lead story on Daily Trust, which is talking about, how bandit leader Turji escaped NAF bombings. You know, a lot of people are actually asking, considering that, the reports say it's a naming ceremony in Turji's house, and, a lot of people lost their lives except the leader himself.
According to when I was reading the report earlier on my way coming, I noticed that the person who was giving the account said he doesn't think Turji was around that day.
Okay.
While the name was going on in his house, I think he said Turji, because if Turji was around, you would have seen more armed men around. But since the security was not as high, so they assumed that he wasn't in the house. So most likely he was out of town, or he was not around, and that's how he actually escaped, according to the report I actually read. So everybody's still waiting for more reports to come out to understand the dynamics of what happened. But it's a good win, but we really hope that Nigeria can actually advance to a situation where we can actually get these things out of the ground.
I remember, like, for example, precision attacks. That's one thing that I expect you to speak about, especially if you look at maybe the latest one, the killing of the Al-Qaeda leader in Afghanistan. How it happened. You'll see that there is precision, and he was picked and eliminated somehow. So when do we, because if you look at even the killing of IS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, many other examples of terrorists like that, you could see how the world deploys real technology and also human intelligence to carry out some of these operations. We appear still not far away from there.
In terms of our intelligence, I think we have there's porosity to our human intelligence. Because sometimes you hear that, oh, this was discussed, the next thing you see it's either on the news or it's
or leaked out.
It's leaked out somehow. Not just even security. There are some documents that you see that shouldn't be out there, but because I don't think we have an espionage act in the country to actually tackle most of these things, so that we can actually keep government affairs, especially the ones that are not supposed to be for the public consumption. In terms of precision attack, I don't think we have the technology for that yet in Nigeria. But we're hoping that the government can actually step up. If not this one, the next government that comes in, we're hoping that these things don't linger for long, so that we can actually move on to other pressing issues. The economic issues that are coming up. NECA is saying that most businesses are looking to fold now because of either taxes, there's inflation in the country. We need to actually look at most of these issues so that we can actually stop being dissuaded from these issues by the insecurity, because insecurity is a major thing. I felt very, how do I say this? I was apprehensive for those of you who went for Kaba Fest. I was like, Kaduna is a second home to me. And for me to go to, I've not gone to Kaduna for a while, and for me to go to Kaduna, it's like extreme sport, especially since the train issue. It's so difficult for some of us to actually move back down there and then come back to Abuja. And we really do need to check up most of these things and take care.
All right, talking about the economy and businesses, on Vanguard, it actually says that businesses are heading for total collapse. NECA raises alarm, talks about 50 taxes weighing businesses down, calls for harmonized tax system and a lot. And then when you come to the Nation newspaper, you also have, a story that says stock markets new rule threaten investors 1 trillion naira, funds. Let's share your thoughts on that.
I think it's painful that the economy is gradually shutting itself down, and it looks like the country cannot do anything about it. We're grappling and basically groping for ways to actually solve those problems that are not realistic or that are not thoughtful. I don't think, sometimes I see some policies that are being rolled out by the government, and I assume that someone in the meeting would have said, oh, this is not going to be good, Nigerians are not going to like this. And I assume that everybody forget about them. Because I don't want to believe that among all the people who makes all of these decisions, most of these decisions, there's no one person that would have actually said, we need to look at this all over again. Is it a bandwagon effect that affects all of them? Because if NECA is raising the alarm now, then that means it has been ongoing, it has been deteriorating for a while. In fact, I knew that it was very bad the last time that we saw that banks were trying to reduce time for most of their branches so that it can actually also save cost. And then the issue of taxes, it's painful that a country as big as Nigeria and well developed in quotes as Nigeria, we don't have harmonized anything in the government. It looks like every parastatal of the government is working in isolation of itself, and they are not they're not sharing information and all of that. Quite last week, we did a training for security personnel on digital rights, and we brought security personnel from the different security agencies in the country. And one of the things they were all fighting about, which was quite interesting, they were all quarreling about, was that they don't share information among themselves. Which, if that could happen in the security system, imagine what's happening in the other government agencies. We need to harmonize these things. We need to work in a way that each government parastatal or agency has a level access to data, such that if I work for example, if I work in a hospital, if I take your NIN and I put it in the database, the government's database, I don't have to have, while I know that, while the government database has your tax returns, has other things, in the hospital they don't need to see your tax returns. Or they just need to know if you're in a health insurance scheme or what is your history. So if they try to access your tax, it tells them that, no, they don't have the clearance for that because it's a hospital. If the police needs certain information, they should be able to get it to the level that they are allowed to get. So we can create a database for most of these things. And so that we can actually checkmate the activities of the country. We can actually ensure that it is smooth sailing and better operations of everything.
Now, the stock market is among the sectors that did well despite the economic slowdown. But now there is this new policy that the nation is reporting, which threatens investors' money. Don't you think that this could affect the positives that we recorded in the first half of the year?
I have a big problem with how the government seems to, especially the finance ministry, seems to always attack stock market. I think it's for lack of understanding. At first, there was a big jab at the crypto market, and then there was another at NFTs. Most of these digital currencies took a jab, and then now there are newer policies that are actually affecting investors in terms of the forex market. I remember that if it is the idea of the BDCs, I know that the argument that was rolled out last time was because most people launder money through BDCs because of the lack of regulation or proper regulation. If that is the problem, then let's find the proper regulation for it. Because we cannot keep having areas of the economy where we can actually generate money from. We can't keep blocking them. There's need for us to actually ensure that we can exploit them so that there will be more internally generated revenue. Our economic policy cannot be borrow all the time. We need to be able to generate enough IGR so that we can start servicing our own debt and start funding our own budget, because now we're borrowing to even fund the budget to start with, and that is really, really bad.
All right, let's take a look at education. Now, in the wake of the federal government suing ASU, we have Students Association threatening to shut down, airports, and then reps and ASU actually to meet over face-off with the government tomorrow.
The ASU issue has lingered for too long. This is still not the longest strike we've had. The longest strike we had was in 2020. Mixed itself together with the COVID lockdown. I think that strike lasted about 9 months. But this is one of the most impactful we've had, because we were just coming out of COVID, where people lost a whole year of their academic calendar of their lives, in fact. And then we pummeled ourselves into ASU strike. People who were in 100 levels in 2020 are still in 100 level today. It is sickening. And I think the government needs to do something about it. We need to meet. The government signed an agreement in 2009. That agreement has been renegotiated severally over the years. I think the government needs to do its own part to ensure that the staff union actually get their fair share. 23.4%, if I'm not mistaken, increments in salary. I don't think it is it. It is not fair. We need to actually change most of it. I think, I personally believe that there should be a 200% increment in ASU, in the salaries.
But can we fund that?
Sorry?
Can we fund that?
It is possible to actually fund it. I think it is possible to actually fund it. However, there is a two different side of it, because I think if we can rearrange some things in our budget, of course the money will come out. If you take your time to go through our budget, the national budget, the breakdown, you will know that there is a lot of money being pumped in areas that are not necessary. Yeah. You will see, we all drive. How much is it to change tire? But if you see that in the budget, it is overshot. There are so many ways that we can actually repurpose money. If we get a proper budget analyst to take a look at our budget and help us repurpose the money properly. I don't think it is lack of competence. We don't have lack of competence in the government. We have the competency to actually do most of these things, and we have to actually have the political will to do it as well.
Okay, so what do you think about the no work, no pay policy that has been invoked on lecturers?
I think it's fair. I'll be honest. I'm not going to sound hypocritical. I think it is fair. If you do not work, you do not get paid. If you look at other countries around the world, people who want to go on strike have a strike fund for their staff, just to make sure that they can actually live a certain period until the
strike is over.
The strike is over, and this strike fund is usually a contributory effort among every other person when things are actually going well. I think if ASU wants to be consistent with the strike approach, they need to create a strike fund for themselves. I don't think we should actually use strike anymore. Strike has proven ineffective to the government. I don't know what the alternative. Anytime I say this to a lecturer, they say, "Oh, what is the alternative?" I don't know what the alternative is, but it looks like this government doesn't even care, because each time you go back to the meeting, they sing the same songs for you, hoping that for some reason you're just going to wake up in the morning and change your mind. And the point at which this ASU strike has deteriorated at this point, it is now egos at play now. I think they've really gotten to a point where anybody who blinks first now has actually lost. And if you lose now, it sets the precedence for going forward. But I think there's still room for them to meet themselves halfway. Increments in salary should be at the top of most of the demands. I think that is a very, very important component because lecturers are really earning way below what they should.
Okay, that's interesting. And away from education now, can we go to politics, where the PDP issue is still lingering? It has refused to die. And in today's, among the papers today, two have a PDP crisis story on the front page, The Punch and the Nation newspaper, where they are talking about, The Punch talks about Board of Trustee meeting two governors, Pintri and Autumn. And then in the Nation newspaper, we have a story saying that PDP governors mount pressure on Wike to drop the Ayu must go call. When do we end this crisis? Do you see any insight?
Like I was saying earlier, there's some crises that deteriorate to a point where it becomes a pride issue and no longer about even the main issue. I think Ayu must go is the one thing that Wike has held on to. He has said this one, he's not going to let it go. This actually proves, to me, I think like this is an avenue for him to prove how powerful he is or how not so powerful he is. So, and in politics, power is very important. Power and influence is a very important factor. So he's not going to actually let go of that because that is one of the most powerful stunts that he has been advocating for since after the primary elections, since after PDP had their primary elections. So I don't know how it's going to end. It's an end that you can actually, it's very difficult to predict because on one hand, Atiku also wants to actually prove that he's in control because he's the party flag bearer. On the other hand, Wike feels he has a stronger stake as well, and he should be able to say this, and he should actually go. So there's.
But do you think Ayu would actually go? Because you have the board of trustees and some governors giving Ayu a vote of confidence at this time.
I saw the news over the weekend about that. But I think it's, how do I put this? This is going to last as long as the elections are going to be. So whatever it is that the consequences are going to be in terms from Wike's side, it better be dire. That's what I think. Whatever the consequences he has already put in place, that if Ayu does not go, the consequences better be dire because I think they are going to call his bluff, and then they will need to see what he can do. So I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's like they have already. Done that with Atiku and Ayu leaving the country to Europe, they say for a 2-week trip or something. So, but what do you think is next for Wike?
It's very difficult. Wike is an unpredictable person. You think this is what he's going to do, and the next thing is just going to shock you. He's not stable. So I can't say what next is for him. But one thing you can never be sure, one thing that's never short of him is that he's always going to put on a show, and we are ready to watch.
That's interesting. I'm also ready to watch that show. He's a very exciting character, actually. Let's look at the business day quickly. They have a story talking about the issue of Ajakuta, and this is one of the perennial issues in the country, never dying. And the story here is talking about hobbled by corruption, Ajakuta Steel Mill's future uncertain. That's, I think, strong enough to, uncertain future. Do you see any salvation?
2 weeks ago, I think barely 2 weeks ago, I was reading a story about, I was trying to do research on most of our defunct government properties. And I noticed that Ajakuta Steel has still been paying salaries since the 90s. They've been paying salaries to staff from even our refineries as well. They've been paying staff salaries. Staff salaries to who? For doing what? That's another question that we actually need to ask. And it's for a lot of people because a lot of money is actually still going into Ajakuta Steel. Ajakuta Steel is now, it is the bride that we don't know how we're going to go about the traditional wedding because it's there, it's promising, it shows a lot of hopes and aspirations for the Nigerian economy, and yet it's the other time we did the Russia-Nigeria meeting, we're hoping that that was going to yield something and it's going to kick off production, or at least we're going to see some level of development and whatnot going in there, but still nothing. The place is still barren, and yet a lot of money is still being spent on that particular infrastructure. It's really, really sad. I really hope that whoever the next governor of Kogi becomes has the political will and has some level of power to be able to ensure that that place starts operating. Because if that place starts operating, it's a good source of revenue, not just for the state, but also for the federal government. And it's going to strategically place the state at this angle where it has to be respected.
Well, so many other projects, are, we're still awaiting.
Mambila,
exactly, the Mambila, and then, our refineries itself and all that. But, that's actually, by the way, and with this, we actually come to the end of, the newspaper review segment. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Suleiman, public affairs commentator, for joining us on the show today. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back at the top of the hour. Do stick around.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. Today, Monday, the 19th of September 2022. It is the beginning of another week, and it is another edition of your favorite morning show, The Daybreak, on Trust Television, coming to you directly from our studio in Abuja, the federal capital. And this is 9 o'clock, and we'll be here from 8 o'clock to 9 a.m. this morning to give you, news updates and interesting packages, as well as discussions on topics of interest. I am Abdulaziz. Good morning.
And I'm Dasha Husseina Usman. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's take a look at some of the stories on the highlights this morning. United Nations General Assembly, President Buhari leaves Abuja for New York.
Masquerades invade Plateau Church, flog pastor worshippers.
Funeral schedule, Queen Elizabeth II to be buried today.
Now here are the details. Some masquerades invaded a church name held in Shikal village of Langton South local government area of Plateau State on Sunday, flogging worshippers as well as the pastor. Apart from flogging the worshippers and flogging the worshippers and the pastor and generally disrupting the service, the masquerades were also said to have destroyed the church musical equipment. The masquerades reportedly arrived at the church while service was ongoing. A witness said the church members were awe-stricken over the action of the masquerades, adding that members did not take any counter-offensive action but gathered to salvage what was left of their property. Elders of the village are said to have to be making effort to get to the root of the matter in order to restore normalcy. The lecturers could not get the reaction from the church or the Christian Association of Nigeria CAN officials in the local government area.
Away from that story, President Muhammadu Buhari left Abuja on Sunday to attend the 77th General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. In New York, the Nigerian president will address the General Assembly on September 21 and will also participate in high-level meetings and side events, including the Nigeria International Economic Partnership Forum. President Buhari will also hold strategic bilateral meetings with world leaders, renowned investors, and heads of multinational organizations while in New York.
Meanwhile, 2,000 guests, including U.S. President Joe Biden, the Emperor of Japan Naruhito, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Nigeria's Vice President Yomi Oshibajo, will be joined by several other heads of state and monarchs to attend Queen Elizabeth II's funeral at Westminster Abbey in London today. In the afternoon, Queen Elizabeth II's coffin will travel to Windsor Castle for a church service where she will be buried in a private ceremony in the evening. Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral is one of the biggest logistical challenges in British history, with more than 10,000 police officers from all over the country stationed in the capital in anticipation of large crowds along the funeral route. On Monday morning, the royal coffin, which is currently on display at Westminster Palace in London, will be moved in a procession to Westminster Abbey beginning at 10:35 a.m. The coffin will be placed on a gun carriage towed by 98 naval officers in a tradition dating back to Queen Victoria's funeral in 1901, and will be followed by the King and members of the British royal family. Although the state funeral service led by the Dean of Westminster, David Hoyle, will begin at 11 a.m., the Abbey's doors will open 3 hours earlier to welcome the 2,000 people who have been invited to the event.
Such an
very elaborate
procession,
exactly,
and it's actually first to be televised, considering that she's actually
the
been,
first modern monarch
to die
for
really long time. And
I really marvel at the details, the minute details to almost everything that is planned for the funeral. From the time she left Balmoral to going to Edinburgh, to coming to London, and all that is quite interesting, and it shows meticulousness and also upholding of tradition.
it's important as well. And she was actually loved by all, because a lot of people trooped out, en masse to, pay their respects, from children to, even old people, elderly and all this. All right, so let's move on to more stories. Motorists in Kaduna say traffic regulators are deviating from the original task of enforcement and focusing more on revenue generation. They made this known while sharing their experiences with the regulators in the course of their operations. The report.
One duty motorists know they are expected to carry out is to abide by the rules and regulations of traffic as provided by the law. In Kaduna State, the state government agency responsible for enforcing compliance to traffic rules is Kaduna State Traffic Law Enforcement Authority, KASLIA. However, in Kaduna Metropolis, some motorists believe that the agency is focused more on generating revenue through multiple fines rather than enforcing compliance to traffic rules and regulations.
They tend to tilt a little bit to maybe generating money or collecting money, probably for the government as part of their revenue, because they are a revenue generating agency.
They are going outside their mandate. Not just that they enforce them, it's not because it's right, because they forcefully they are going against their core mandate.
Me as a motorist now, I have targeted myself to highlight the places which they usually mount themselves. So whenever I come out from home, I used to divert or change my route.
The way they emphasize on this revenue issue is too bad, because I thought they are here to work on the safety of the people and our vehicles.
The Kaduna State Traffic Law Enforcement Authority, KASLIA, debunked allegations of focusing more on revenue generation, noting that it has not deviated from its core mandate.
Kaduna State Traffic Law Enforcement Authority is not a revenue generating agency. So if you can get 100% compliance, automatically we may not even think of any penalties. But we get little out of the road users, mostly because of non-compliance of those laws guiding the driving code. But when we get 100% compliance, we cannot generate a single kobo, and that is why this authority was even created.
While the motorists insist that KASLIA should train their officials on how to conduct themselves on the road, KASLIA maintains that their officials are doing their best within the ambit of the law.
They lack training, actually, sincerely speaking. They lack training. They have to train them and teach them their work well.
We have about 17 zones and units cut across the 23 local government of the states, and the unit commanders and the zonal commanders are always taking their time to make sure that the writing, that is training on training, is done at the various level.
With the motorists calling on KASLIA to do the needful, the agency also wants motorists to abide by the rules of traffic in order to prevent the occurrence of accidents. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Now, Now, individual tobacco or cigarette smokers have different reasons why and how they started smoking. Oftentimes, people are pushed into starting the habit by peer pressure or psychological trauma. In Katsina, Abdullah Yamadi samples the opinions of some smokers and tries to get answers to some questions. The report.
Smoking everywhere in the world is regarded as a bad habit by whoever engages in it, and it is absolutely dangerous to human health. The army of smokers continues to grow despite warnings and campaigns by organizations and relevant stakeholders about dangers associated with cigarette smoking. It raises the question, why does smoking persist even after the World Health Organization continues to make it clear that over 8 million people die from tobacco smoking each year?
Tobacco smoking is one of the most addictive behaviors now. it is not easy, or we cannot simply say that it is simple to quit smoking. It's not something you can change behaviorally without any stressful issues. Like we have said, ardent and casual smokers, or simply addicted smokers, or not addicted, smoking is one of those behaviors people cannot discard easily.
Tobacco or any other form of smoking cuts across all age groups and gender, regardless of its health implication. I am an ardent smoker, and I started smoking 20 to 25 years ago. I was lured into smoking by my friends, who happened to be trailer drivers. I can quit anytime I wish because I know about its implications. Its dangers are written everywhere, even on the cigarette packs. Beyond that, can ardent smokers quit without any help or alternative to smoking? Experts suggest some alternative ways smokers can quit the habit with or without the help of anybody.
If somebody wishes to quit smoking or any bad habit, he can do so without any consultation, because it is on his own will that he started smoking. If he wants to stop smoking, he can stop, because all the religions that we are following in this country prohibit smoking.
Observers are blaming authorities of doing little or nothing to discourage tobacco consumption in Nigeria. They are suggesting that governments can checkmate smoking by imposing taxes and making legislations that can effectively reduce citizens' access to the product. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Kaduna Book and Art Festival, Kaba Fest, has come to an end, with participants entertaining fears over the sustainability of the event after the tenure of Governor Nasir El-Rufai. The participants believe that if sustained, it will encourage reading culture and promote literacy, as well as help in the discovery of talents in the north. The report.
Kaduna Book and Art Festival is an annual literary, cultural, and art event that debuted in 2017. It is also the largest art and literary event in northern Nigeria, where literates gather to showcase their talent. Besides inspiring the participants, the event not only encourages reading culture, but promotes cultural heritage.
A lot of youths here, and we're losing the reading culture. With this program, I think getting back to books.
That literary tradition, which we have always been known for as a people, we are naturally storytellers as Africans, has not been lost. All that is left is for platforms like this to keep sprouting.
I believe that there are certain conversations that need to be had, and we don't really have them outside these settings. So I think it's important that we have these conversations here.
It exposes you to a lot of critical conversations for this generation and how our society works now.
If I'm going to do something big of literature or art someday, I think this is going to be my biggest motivation, Kada Fest.
For freelance journalist and bilingual writer Salim Yunusa, supporting writers by state government is key.
Having artists in the states is a way of promoting the state and the talent pool of the states. So the government should do all it can to support this kind of movements, because you cannot just be allowed to have a talent for it to waste away. It is very important as a government to identify all sources of talent and promote that in their states.
The fears entertained by writers and art lovers is whether the program will be sustained beyond Governor El-Rufai administration in the state.
Unfortunately, we haven't been able to move it from government funding to private sector funding, which would have been the ideal. But the only thing I would say is I personally will try my best to see that it is sustained. If the next government that comes in does not see it fit to continue, we'll have to look for funding from other sources.
Well, festivals can only be sustained by funding, to be honest with you, and it's hard. It's very difficult, and as long as Kaduna State continues to put its money where its mouth is about wanting to support young creatives, I think this festival will continue.
It definitely should be sustained because just like the children need to know about their culture, we also need to know more about our culture, and we need to learn how to inculcate it into our everyday lives.
The 2022 Kaba Fest featured panel discussion, art and book exhibition, book chat, film screening and discussion, dance performance, among others. Bello Musa, Trust TV News Kaduna.
If you are just joining us, it's been a Daybreak on Trust Television, and the show continues after this short break. Do stay with us.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back. And now let's move on to our first discussion of the day. Now, Monday, September 12, 2022, the 19 northern governors and all the region's monarchs crossed an unaccustomed line in the unfolding agitation of a new Nigeria. They called for the amendment of the 1999 Constitution to give legal backing for the immediate establishment of state police. They resolved that the creation of the state police was the only way to confront the continued insecurity in the region and the country at large, with kidnapping, massive killing, and wanton destruction of property spiraling. Now, let's understand what this means for Nigeria. And we have in the studio with us a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Inalegu. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here this morning.
All right. So what does, the establishment of state police, mean for Nigeria?
Well, ordinarily, state police in a federal republic would have been the ideal thing. But going by our experience on ground, right from our independence up to 1966, it was discovered and found that the regional police did not help matters because of misuse. And so in 1966, then Supreme Commander General Ronsi set up the Gobi Commission. And then in 1968, the result was released. And that led to the collapse of the various regional police forces, the local government and the provincial and the rest of them. And so you have the Akoda in the southwest, the Danduka, Native Authority Police in the north, and the rest of them were now made within the Nigeria Police Force because there were several allegations of oppression. If you belonged, they became like political thugs used by the regional authorities. And in the wisdom then, it was found that, okay, we need to have just one police force. That's why you have the Nigeria Police. Even the 1979 Constitution
and 1999 Constitution provide, I think in Section 214, that there shall be one police force and for the Federal Republic, for the Federation, and no other police force shall exist in any part thereof. But yes, there have been agitations. But these agitations say, oh, because there is an increase in crime, we have to go regional, we have to have state police. But I don't think that is the solution right now, because we have serious problem. We are dealing with a kind of unity in diversity, and a lot of, we have a lot of mix. And so those of us who are practitioners, who have had the privilege of working in various places, we look at it and say, look, yes, state police is okay, but right now, it's not the ideal time. And look at the time that this call is coming, at the threshold of a major national elections. And that is the time these agitations are coming. And this things, it raises a lot of fear in some of us. It's a kind of, it's curious that this call is coming at this time, knowing that the state governors have enormous powers. And I want to say what we have is said, no state commissioner of police, if the governor gives him legitimate order, directive about management of crime and all that, there is no commissioner of police that will not do that. But where you have the Nigeria Police Force is suffering from gross resource problem. The problem of Nigeria Police is resources. There are no resources to work. And you are going to build a state police from a police force that is under-resourced, understaffed. There are no materials to work with. That is a challenge. We've got to address this challenge. The challenge of training institutions. Why are you going to train these people you are bringing as state police? Ordinarily, that is a decision. But right now, you are going to have a situation. Right now, if you have election in the states, most of them, there are consensus. The candidates must be given to you by the state governors. They have those, those powers. You can imagine you give them state police. Nobody is even going to win any election if they are not anointed.
Let me please step in here. So one of the arguments conversed by people who want this state police is that even now, just like you mentioned, the issue of resource constraint,
yes,
that the police is so underfunded, and the governors end up funding the police in their respective states. That if that is the case, then why shouldn't they have their own state police instead of funding a federal police?
If you have a police command that has 30, let's say 40 police divisions, and the governor comes and contributes 10 vehicles, gives some money to buy fuel, is that enough to fund the police? So the federal government bears a large chunk. What is doing is complementing. After all, there are security votes. What I'm trying to canvass for is those factors that led to the collapse of the regional police, have they disappeared? Are there no more challenges of unity in Nigeria? We now have, what we have right now, we have a lot of militia. You have a Bebeagu, you have an Eastern Security Network, a Motekun. Maybe that one's a little bit, organized and all that. But others are forming. Even the supernumerary police, or what we call SPY, the supporting police, the Friday police we call them. In 2020, April, the President Muhammad Buhari approved for community policing, having a special constabulary in the various localities. And what did the government say? Say, look, we are approving this under our community policing scheme. The federal government will give you allocation, let's say 1,000, federal government will pay. If you state government, you want more, you apply. How you can say you want 10,000. They are going to be giving police uniform, but the color will be varied a little bit. The number they'll carry on their chest, instead of 6 numerals, you have 3. If you go to Nigeria Security Printing and Minting, you find them there. If you go to WAEC offices, you find them there. They wear police uniform. These people work in communities. They mix, they interact, and gather information, and then through the chain of command, they pass them. You see, when you talk of law enforcement is about intelligence gathering. It's about utilization of intelligence. It's about technology. And where you don't have that, so when you have these people working in the community, have the governors keyed into it? I think Kwara experimented. There was demonstration. They didn't pay them. Now, some state governments are launching various outfits. In some of them, they don't even use police to train them. They use military to train them. And we are talking about law enforcement. We are talking about that skill you acquire to be able to mingle with the communities. In terms of respecting their human rights, you see them all the time. I, as a DPO, when I was DPO, when two communities have problems with land, I invite them. So I get to understand their mentality. Now you are training the various security outfits in your state, you bring military to train them. So you destroy that part of law enforcement. And so I have a lot of apprehension. And I find it suspicious that at this time that we are at the threshold, at the cusp of a major election, we want state police. So, let me tell you, if you carry out a survey among serving officers and retired officers, whether at the junior rank, at the rank, I can assure you that more than 98% will be in favor that right now we maintain the status quo. There are steps that have been taken. There should be agitation. We have zones created, the AIG zones, the commissioners of police. I think there should be a kind of devolution of power to the AIGs. There are certain things that should end on the desk of the AIG. Those are close. By the time you begin to experiment that, you give powers to AIGs, they have budget to do few things, not everything coming to Abuja. When you begin to have that devolution will begin to bring it closer to the communities. Just like the area commands have assistant commissioners of police, have a set of police divisions under them. Right now, what we should be clamoring for, especially as we are approaching an election, we should be talking about training and retraining towards the election. We should be talking about providing necessary resources that will aid in rapid response during the election period. When we do this, and then getting our training institutions properly equipped, when we do that, we now say, okay, look, we are moving. We are going with the community policing arrangement, the special constabulary. We are experimenting on them, they are working. And then we begin to build from there. But boom, state police, 1,000. Election comes. In that community, they are not in favor. Nobody is even going to vote from there. And all that. I am not saying you cannot misuse the federal police. But you know, when you have the the president is very accountable, because even the international community have a way of monitoring how the president administers the country when things go like that. Even as developed as the United States, we say, well, the United States is a federation, all the states have it, but the situation there is different. Holding people accountable, even the Police Service Commission.
Okay, so what about an enabling environment? Do you think, Nigeria has the enabling environment, to create state police?
That is a problem. The enabling environment is not just there, because accountability is a difficult issue. It is easier to hold the federal government accountable because of the different people and all that. You can hold federal government. The police is not doing well. Somebody cries from Abeokuta, somebody cries from Maiduguri. But if you are in Lagos, last man arrest you, take you with the experiences people have had, it's been a very difficult thing. But if we evolve, if we get more mature, if the politicians can create enabling environment without saying consensus, without being responsible who goes into the Senate, who goes into the House of Rep, who becomes speaker. If the speaker is not of their favor overnight, he's impeached, and then so many things. So the situation now is even more there than it was, leading to the Operation Wet, the Team Riot, and the rest of them. we are building, we are in our unity is very fragile. People, there is IPOP looking to secede, and there are so many of such agitation. So let us hold this country together. Then when the time comes, of course, state police is a good thing, but the atmosphere right now is not. The democracy is just getting to 24 years, so 23 plus. By next year, it should be 24 years. The new democracy that we have, and we're happy that in this 24 years, it is growing every day. There is accountability. People can vote you that if you do well. So we want that thing to go on. But please, for God's sake, provide for the Nigerian police. Then you can hold them accountable. Look at the major operation going on in London on the burial of the king. Only 10,000 police officers are deployed. We're having over 2,000 leaders across this, and millions of people gathering to pay their respect to the queen. Only 10,000 police. They are backed by by technology. They are backed by adequate resources. I know we don't have that money, but we can aspire to do that. And that police is giving that mandate. The military will come, but the military that will carry weapon for that will be approved by the police. Navy police will deploy. Military police will deploy, but only with the approval of the Metropolitan Police would they bear weapon. But here we are. You create civil defense. You don't know what really their responsibility is. I think it's only in Nigeria that civil defense carry weapon. They don't carry weapon in other countries. They carry weapon. They have divisional officers, DOs. They don't call their own DP. So you don't even understand whether Section 214 is being violated. The resources that should have been provided to make this agency effective, they're being dissipated in other agencies. And you have a police division with 300 personnel. What do you have? 2 rickety vehicles. Robbery going on in the neighborhood. They're unable to respond. Oh, police is inefficient. What have you provided for the police to be in? I have gone out of the country. I was in Namibia in 1989. Nigeria police was rated the best. I was in Sierra Leone under the United Nations, UNAMSIL, for Nigeria police, all the police forces. We had about 22 countries, and all of them wanted to work with us because our boys work without getting tired. But here we are. We don't even have now.
Okay, now, some people, don't you think that some of this argument, especially against state police, will be seen as sentimental, especially coming from people like you who had worked in the Nigerian police force, who perhaps want trying to be protective to see that the Nigerian police is not rendered irrelevant with the creation of state police?
When you create, what makes them irrelevant? There will be spheres of influence. Right now, don't we have VIUs? Are they not traffic police? They are road traffic services. In the FCT, don't you see them stopping and searching? Don't we have road safety? But the core duty of police, when there is a road crash that is fatal and there is death, the police will investigate. They will have their sphere of influence. It even makes, but what we are saying is that when you are in a fragile situation, you've got to be circumspect when you make certain decisions. Because when there are a lot of outcry, when you have all this, you talk of Amotekun, Ebubeagu, and the rest, who are those there? Do we have non-indigenous among them? And we have, our country is very fluid. People move from the north to the south, south to the north, east to west, and all like that. So what I am saying really is, I am not saying that the idea of state police is totally bad. I am saying that the science right now is so fragile, because you go to the southeast now on Mondays, you don't go to work, because if you do, either ESN or something is enforcing, or some band of criminals. But if you have a police force, the Nigeria police, properly resourced, at least fairly resourced, I wouldn't say, because the country is suffering from debt of the economy is crippling. It's so difficult. But if you give them something reasonable and you hold them accountable, give powers to the AIG so that the IG is not saddled with everything. If you do that, you are going to have people begin to experience the nearness. So that if you need certain things, the AIG should have that power to be able to do it. The AIG should be able to talk about monitoring and evaluation. He has the resources to send his officers from Abuja to Mina to monitor the guys that are on patrol. Are they conducting their patrols the way patrols is supposed to be conducted? Are cases being investigated properly? The AIG will have that allowance to pay the officers that he sends. And then the IG will begin to hold the AIGs responsible and accountable. But, you see, then from there, the Nigeria police is sitting well. And then you say, okay, we begin to start state police. And then because you are going to use the same training institutions. And then you begin to build the state police. And it goes like that. And then the Nigeria police, the state police will work. Well, the Nigeria police work very well with VIO. VIO is not state police.
Okay. Now,
they are traffic police.
Some of the underlying reasons for the rise of, insecurity, injustice, inequality, literacy, unemployment, and poverty. Now, some have actually argued that, the governors have actually not done enough to address these challenges in their respective states, and they've not, invested in human capital development in terms of budget releases, cash backing, quality service delivery, and development outcomes. Do you think it will affect their chances for the clamor of, the state police creation?
So many things work against them. My classmate in the university, he called me last night. He retired in 2018. He has not gotten his retirement benefits. He's not on pension. He said somebody was owing him something in JOS. I should please help him talk to him. That one was our junior in UniJOS. You are not paying salaries. You are not paying pension. You bring police, you give him gun. He's not getting his salary. Will you be paying the police and not pay other civil servants in your state? You see, let's face it. Yes, you are the governor. There should be, in a federation, you have the subnational governments. And so you have that. But your budget, can your budget support? It's a different thing. If you have a child, you are sending the child to school, you pay his school fees, you buy him books, and the uncle somewhere is giving him a little pocket money. It's not the one sponsoring the child. Once the child involves his food, his dressing, his medication. So you can't say that uncle giving him a little pocket money has assumed the responsibility of the upkeep of that child. I hope you understand. So that you are supporting. Supporting is different when it becomes your entire responsibility. I am sure those who have launched all this or that, they understand. What I am saying is this. Go the way of the special constabulary as a beginning. Because law enforcement ordinarily shouldn't be carrying weapons. It is the support divisions. Ordinarily, the blue and the black trousers, all of them shouldn't be carrying weapons. You don't find traffic police carry weapons. But you have the police mobile force, the counter-terrorism unit, and those specialized units that act as support divisions to the police. So this idea of even putting rifles all over the place, how many times have you had there's exchange of gunfire? It's very rare. The bandits just come into a community, boom, they attack and they leave. And then you go after them. It happens so fast. But if you have intelligence, if you invest in intelligence, while they are planning, while they are cooking their devilish plan, the criminal acts, you intercept them. You don't even have the opportunity of firing a shot. So the special constabulary is a useful thing. But I think the fear is, because They will be under the command of the local, the DPU. But you can also have a central command if you have the special constabulary. Might be the special advisor on security to their excellencies will now coordinate that office and then work with the DPUs and the CP. And they will tell them, because like they have all of us admit that every crime is local. It happens in the community. Somebody comes to the community. What does he do for a living? Suddenly his lifestyle changes. So when you begin to observe those signs, it is something that those you have in the community, because they are recruited among the people, they know each one. And in that way, you plan an operation, you monitor the guy, you arrest, conduct a search, and find out whether he's doing something. What is he doing to get that money? If it is farm, all of us in the community also have farm. How come he's living differently? So you can deal with crime without firing gun. Law enforcement is not it's not military. So when you are talking about even the biggest banditry, even Bello told you, if you have the right intelligence, that time he's coming to town to see somebody, you just grab him like a woman. You've got to invest in intelligence. And that is why it is important. I have always emphasized, and I commend the recent steps taken by the police management led by IG Alkali to deal with cases of indiscipline among officers. Because when you have a disciplined police force, they can relate better with the community. The community show them more respect, because you respect somebody who is polite to you, somebody who cares about your need. So when you have a police force that is disciplined, it's not going about carry people with an iPad, asking them what is inside, and then dealing with all these things. If you have that, and you get the confidence of the community, I don't have to come from Sokoto to get the confidence of the community, because when they know that I am a person of truth, they will relate with me. So what we need, the governors should open this window. Why the clamor for state police go on? Yes, they are the chief security officers, but do you think, honestly, even if you are not a serving police officer or a retired police officer, do you think with all the clamor, the oil theft going on, the massive killing and the intimidation and lawlessness that go on in the Southeast in the name of either ESN or whatever, IPOB or whatever, and the other things going on in other parts of the country. Look, the kidnapper live among us. The kidnapper live in our forest. We have people working in the forest. We have people working on timber. We have farmers. They see people pass. You see somebody in your community and you have not seen the person before. Once you trust your local police, the DPU, you are able to give information. And this information you give will not jeopardize your security. But you say, if we tell them, ask them, how many police have you told? And it divulged. There is very serious punishment for divulging information about intelligence that has been given to you. So the clamor for state police, for now, should be kept in abeyance. Let us build the Nigeria Police Force. Nigeria Police Force is a good police force. Our boys are very good.
We'll come back to be building the Nigerian Police Force after this short break.
Thank you.
Every patriotic Nigerian should hear this. Any politician who means well for the people will never allow themselves or their supporters to engage in any violent, destructive activities. No politician who truly wants to serve the people and develop the nation will encourage his followers to destroy properties or take human lives before, during, or after the elections. The Nigerian public must watch out for these traits and isolate any politician who encourages supporters to engage in violence. No genuine politician or patriot will cause trouble and seek to destroy the very society which they aspire to lead or develop. Politicians who have the good of the people at heart will not allow themselves or their followers to engage in violence, destruction of properties, and then taking of lives. Be vigilant. By their words you shall know them. Shun violence. Stay away from politicians who want you to do so. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NORA.
All right, welcome back to Daybreak on Trust TV. Now we're still discussing creation of state police, and we still have in the studio with us retired Assistant Inspector General of Police Wilson Inalegu. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, now some have actually, rather suggested a zonal policing, based on the 6 geopolitical zones. Do you think that should be taken into consideration?
Well, of course, that is going to accommodate especially the minorities, because that means the state will not have a monopoly of one tribe and all that sort of thing. But the idea is that, given the fragility of the moment, that in approaching that, we've got to look at what we have a problem with our unity, I think, a lot of agitations. That let us go back. Let the governors take their time and study the Police Act, study the police special constabulary arrangement, how they can key into it. Once they do that, and it works well, then they begin to talk of the 6 zonal structure. Of course, when going forward, if they're going to have anything like have a semblance of state police or whatever, that will become clearly. There are many states that cannot support a police force because it's highly capital intensive. But going forward, if at all that is going to be addressed, that may be more useful, because you have about 3, 4, 5, 6 of 6 states having that kind of thing. I think that's the arrangement that the Southwest have about Amotekun. It's a zonal arrangement. That's what they have. But what I'm saying right now, let us, because I imagine that the MPF should bet some of these police forces, because when the Southern Police College was established and the Northern Police College in Kaduna established, I think, 1949 and all that, they were meant to take care of, such regional arrangements. Now we even have more training institutions. Most states have training institutions. But if you go to the training institutions, they're in a state of dilapidation. They can't support very high quality training. So while that may be an option, the point I am making is, let us manage the current system. Let people get matured to see that power is transient. Today, I am president, I am a senator, I am a governor, but it has a lifespan. And begin to do that, begin to see that if I am not there tomorrow, what happens? I should put in place a system that will cater for all seasons. If you commit an offense, you'll be dealt with as an offender. If you are innocent, you'll be treated as innocent. Not minding where you come from, what language you speak, what religion you belong. So once we begin to aim at that, nobody is going to be apprehensive. You have family police, compound police, village police, but people want to have a sense of belonging wherever they find themselves. But I think people are apprehensive that if you put us in this state, at this stage, one, our votes could be suppressed. If America, as sophisticated as it is, there were attempts to suppress voters of minorities like blacks and Latinos and the rest of, talk less of a new democracy.
So now, what do you think should be done? What is the way out of this agitation and also managing what is in existence?
Yeah. Number one, the reform of the police, the change process leading to the change of mindset of police should be employed. They should study all these various committees set up and take some silent points. Build a police force that will meet the aspirations of all. A police force that is a force for good, a force for all. Provide basic resources in terms of technology, in terms of vehicles, in terms of manpower, so that when there's something happening in Zurumi village or local government, the police there should be able to give a holding force before we have an intervention or a reinforcement. But a situation whereby you are attacking Kajuru and they don't even have a vehicle to respond, that is the problem. Please provide technology, provide vehicles, and then the National Orientation Agency should mobilize the citizens to support crime-fighting initiative. You see, the people should take their responsibility seriously. And once they do that, you are going to have a good police force. A reform, restructuring, rebuilding, provide a police force. Empower the AIGs. Look at, let the National Assembly take a look at how the AIG offices are operating. Is that the intention? Do they have limited power in terms of finance? Award basic, to supply, maybe walkie-talkies, few things that give them that semblance. And the Police Service Commission should partner with the police management to be able to build a virile police force, so that the idea of disagreement, they should all see their role as a call to national service. That means in terms of recruitment, in terms of discipline, and the Police Service Commission and the MPF working together as a family that they are, they can build a police force that will be the envy of all African countries and even internationally. Let me tell you one thing you don't know about the Nigeria Police Force, that they go out and excel. They have the resources. The standard is 3 police personnel to 1 vehicle. But what do you have here? 300 policemen to 3 vehicles. You can never have law enforcement like that. So if you're going forward, therefore, is the governor should study the special constabulary arrangement and say, look, I need 5,000 for my state. They recruit them, send them to the training schools, train them, and put them. So they should pursue that so that every community can have the special constabulary. That's number 1. Number 2, the police management and the Police Service Commission should continue to work assiduously to integrate the police with the community, to of course, the respect for human rights, dealing promptly with disciplinary matters, that the public will have confidence that if you bring a report to the police, it will be dealt with, that If you are the suspect, you are the suspect, and all that. If you do that, you are going to have a force that everybody will be proud of. And integrated to the community, coming to the community, the police working closely with the judiciary and the prison authorities. This is going to help so that has somebody overstayed as an awaiting trial, what are the judges doing about it? Once you bring all this, the administration of justice, these three key elements, the judiciary, the correctional service, and the Nigerian police force, working closely together, that working closely together is going to impact on crime. And of course, the area council, the local government areas, taking the issue of security right from the village to ward level, discussing it, because everything about security is local.
All right.
When you do that, you are going to get information common, and you don't need to fire a gun to arrest people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for speaking with us, on state policing this morning. That was a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Wilson Enaligo.